Welcome to Season 2 of the Maine podcast, where small businesses join together to think outside the box and learn how to roll with the punches and stay in the fight. We invite you to tune in whether you're a skeptic, on the fence, or have many years creating Maine-made products. Let's keep that entrepreneurial fire burning strong as we put Maine on the map with the Maine podcast. Hey everyone, today on the Maine podcast, we have Jeremy Grant from the Timber Cross joining us again on Season 2. We're kicking it off with the big bearded Mainer. Man, that thing has grown significant. Oh man, look at that mug. Tell me this guy's not from Maine.
It's the Maine mug right here. That's like a legit pot of coffee in your hand right there.
I love that, man. Where did you get that mug? Is
Dude,
that like a Rennie's thing?
Legit, it was like an eternal search. And my wife found it like after 2 years. I was like, I want this ultimate Maine coffee cup that will hold my fist and like a gallon of coffee. And then one day she came home with this thing. I love it.
Yeah. Us Mainers, we like our coffee. Hopefully you got some good Maine coffee in there.
Oh, of course.
If you don't, we'll get you some.
Oh yeah.
So that beard definitely has grown. Am I right? Like, are you measuring that thing every day? You're like, all right, I reached 12 inches of beard.
Well, I measure it next to the children. So it's like, I'll take all the kids and I'll be like, okay, so it's almost, Ellie height. So I think once my children outgrow the beard, maybe we'll trim it, but probably not.
That's like Sasquatch. Got the Yeti beard.
It's camouflage.
I like it, man. Well, it's good to see you. It's been a little while. 2020 was a wild and crazy year. Now, I know you always have your hands in a bunch of different things, a bunch of projects going on, and we'll dive into the sled dog racing, which is the one that I'm most interested about. But give us a little bit of a summary and update on who you are, what you do, what last year, looked like for you, and how changes have come.
Yeah. So COVID obviously was wild. And what I do is I'm a content creator. I'm a videographer. So I make commercials. I make travel documentary style outdoor films, and everything was looking really great. And then COVID hit and then lost 80% of all my business. So it was that kind of reinvent period of just, okay, I know that I'm going to continue to make video as long as I live, because this is my passion and what I'm meant to do. And then I just kind of stayed at it. And then all at once, it just kind of opened back up with a few little projects here and there. One cool project was I had the opportunity to work with a local freight company that delivers all over the country. So we were just trying to show their safety and their history and their professionalism. So I was like, well, let's do it. So I jumped into the 18-wheeler and went halfway down the coastline with this guy for a week and just kind of filmed the whole process and put some videos together.
You jumped into an 18-wheeler with someone you didn't even know and drove all the way across the country.
Yep. And then I got back and I was shooting a commercial, a spot for a commercial for Flex Steel. I can't share anything about the commercial yet. It's not out, but it was epic. I was able to.
Is that the stuff you can put on anything?
Oh,
and
yeah.
It just fixes it magically?
Yeah. I mean, Flex Steel, it's magic.
Yes.
So I was able to do that, which was epic because I was able to film just out to the ocean. So it was like a mile out to sea, and I'd take this little sea otter kayak and I'd just go hang out out there. And that was a blast. So I was back and forth with that. And then working with a really cool paving company all the way up in Presque Isle. And then I was, they made a literal award-winning road. So we made a video about it, and it was
award-winning road.
I mean, that's some skill. Like, it tests above. Oh, it's crazy. It's too smart for me to understand.
Right.
I let them say the specs.
It sounds like to me, where things were closing down and everything was kind of shut down, the shows, the derby racing, the toboggan, all the outdoor activities and festivals, you had to kind of make a little bit of a change. Am I right?
Well, it was just, no, it was more of the same. There's always outdoor adventures to be had and to share. And there wasn't a lack of ideas. What ended up happening, it was feast or famine. We went through this stretch where there was no work. So I had to pick up as much commercial work and just make it through that. But I mean, at the same time, like, I was able to still hang out and do some really cool stuff. Like one of the last videos, I had an opportunity to do a little micro doc about lighthouses and to go check out some remote lighthouses off the coast of Maine. And then I went fishing for one of the literal rarest fish in the entire world that
What?
is right here in Maine.
No
And
way.
it's only in, I think, 4 lakes. And it's a Arctic char. And in the fall, they turn like this crazy, brilliant orange. So I went in by float plane and we stayed at this remote off-grid camp. And it was just, I mean, the water was crystal clear for like 25 feet. You can just like turn the flashlight on at night and it just went
Wow.
forever. And hanging out with a couple of YouTubers that do that kind of filming. So we made a collaboration. And then
Do you have
um,
Did you already have something put out for that? The content for it?
yeah, so that's the last video I put out, and that was 3 months ago. And it was just, it's been one thing after the other. So I was gone doing that for 4 or 5 days. And then a good friend of mine is a bare knuckle boxer, and he's
Yeah.
he's number 4 in the world. I think right now he
Wow.
might be ranked number 5 in heavy and ultra heavyweight. So I've been kind of following him around on and off for the last year. And him and I got a chance to go down to Belfast, New York, and hang out in Knuckletown, USA, like where legendary John L. Sullivan, like the bare knuckle boxer, trained and did all this stuff and went through his museum and went through some of those training techniques. So I was able to hang out and document him doing that. Then I was able to go check out Niagara Falls and
Yeah.
came back up to me. It's just been one thing after the other. Um, and then Mr. Beast happened. And, for those of you that don't know who he is, he's another YouTuber. And I had an opportunity to be on a pretty big video. It was a competition. And long story short, 2 months on and off, and the video is canceled due to the pandemic. But we're
Oh
going to
man.
try to,
He's not just a YouTuber
you
anyways. He's a very, very large up and coming YouTuber. He's got like 55 million subscribers. And what he does is he's really big on giving back and giving away money and helping homeless people and food pantries. I watch a lot of his videos on YouTube. It's a younger
yeah,
generation, a younger crowd, but I honestly think that dude is so authentic. And if you look back at some of his original videos, a lot of them is like just going out and just trying to figure a way to help other people out. And I think that's an awesome thing. And he's been able to create this big platform on it. So when you told me that you had that opportunity to go out there, I was very excited for you. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out, but I
yeah.
think it will all come full circle in the end.
Well, I mean, the entire experience was incredible. Like to be able to get to meet him, like
Yeah.
so when we first got there, we quarantined for 2 weeks, and safety was priority number 1 from the minute we got there. So quarantining for 2 weeks, and then everyone got tested. Then we quarantined for a
Yep.
little while longer, got retested, and then we could finally meet as a group. And I'll tell you what the video was. It was 24 people, last to leave competition for $1 million.
Wow.
So just an insane opportunity. And so after being in quarantine, I'm like training for whatever. I have no idea what this guy is going to throw at me. I think I totaled 186 miles I walked in my hotel room,
Wow.
and like was just practicing standing on my feet and just weird stuff to get ready for this. And
You were going all in, and that's who
I'm
you are.
100%, man. I was
Whatever
like,
you
I'm
get
going
your
to
hands
bring
on.
Maine to whatever this competition is. And
Yeah, buddy.
there isn't going to be anything that's going to make me quit. I can completely fail because I can't throw a basketball or something like that, but there's going to be no quit in me. So it was cool. So the first day we have the opportunity to all get together for the first time, and looking around, I'm like, oh man, I'm like the old guy here
Oh
by
no.
far. And I stick out like a sore thumb. You know what I mean? Everyone's like 18 to 25. And then here's some big burly Maine dude with a beard. I'm wearing my red plaid, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and we sit in this circle, and we're all just saying hi to each other. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Beast just sits right down next to me. And I'm like, hey, Jimmy, what's up, man? He's just cool as a cucumber, just
Yeah.
super humble. He's like, I'm going to be real with you. Like, I have social anxiety, and I just, after I get to know people, I love it. But like crowds, I'm still just not used to it. And just this super humble dude. And like, one of the things that stood out to me, I was like, man, it's just love what you're doing. Love your heart of just giving and giving and
Yeah.
giving. and his standards are so high
Oh,
for
wow.
what that quality and caliber is. But I was like, man, what's one of your favorite things about doing this? He's like, the look in someone's eye, like of just disbelief
Yeah.
and just like sheer shock and amazement and gratefulness. Like you hand someone $10,000 with no strings attached. Oh, here you go.
They don't believe you. I think one of
And
them
just to
recently just gave
watch.
away a house to somebody and they're like, no, no.
No, well,
And why
no, he
is
didn't.
that? I
But
mean,
the crazy thing is, he didn't give away a house. He was gonna make the video about giving away 3 houses, and he says, I just don't think that's enough. So he gave away 5 houses.
yeah.
In one of his last videos, he literally bought 5 entire stores and donated everything.
And I think
Like it's
a
just
lot of people just
generosity
don't
after
believe it because
generosity.
I think it's just the culture we live in. We
Yep.
all automatically assume that there's got to be some catch to it. And I love that he just doesn't look for anything in return.
No, just super humble dude. And like,
Yeah.
again, just that opportunity to go hang out with him, to get to know those guys just a little bit. But long story short, due to safety, things got canceled, and he tried and tried and tried and tried. And they did say that they were going to bring me back for another opportunity.
Cool.
It's not going to be the same competition, the same video. They're not bringing everybody back, but they're going to bring me back sometime after all this. So, I mean, that's still pretty incredible. And they were, like I said, they were above just amazing through the whole process.
And,
So
and the reason why
still
we
looking
bring
forward
this
to it.
up is, what a great opportunity for one, but two, it does put a change on your plans, your schedule. You're
Yeah.
very busy. You have all of these people that you're working with, your family as well. How
Yeah.
did that? Let's talk a little bit about how difficult that was.
Oh
I
man.
think some people don't understand when you go all in on something, there's sacrifices that have to be made
Mhm.
and you don't always get the results that you want, but it's still challenging.
Well, it was one of those situations where when we went in the first time, it was just still so shocking and like, oh my gosh, I was literally that Arctic char video I was telling you about. I was in the middle of editing it, and it was a 24-hour live stream where he gave away this opportunity to go on. So he saw my name in the chat and was like, "Hey, that dude." And I was like, "Cool, exciting."
Mm.
And then next thing you know, the next 4 days, it's like, "Oh, well, we're going to fly you out soon." And then all of a sudden it's like, "Yeah, tonight." Like tonight.
Wow.
So, or it was like the next day, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I had the trucking video going on, the construction
Yep.
video
Yep.
going on. I had a bunch of footage from my buddy Chris. Like I still had all this stuff to edit and to juggle and to get all of this in, but literally $1 million opportunity
What do
with
you,
a
yeah.
massive YouTuber. For what my main goal was to go out there and be the most of me I could be, and just to get it out there in front of as many people so I could continue to grow my audience, to encourage and inspire people to get out, to explore, to,
Right.
live life. You know what I mean? So it was exciting, but we didn't know how long it was going to be. So there was still that anticipation. We knew 2 weeks, and then the competition, we had no idea what it was. So that was hard, but it was exciting. There was that buildup, and then something happened in the middle where we were literally in the middle of production for 48 hours. So we were 48 hours into the competition, and something happened, and we had to put the whole thing on pause.
Oh man.
So that was like wrenching. You're like, oh, what? Like 48 hours deep into this competition, and I'm not going to go into all the details
Sure.
and
Sure.
things like that. But then I had to quarantine for another 10 to 12 days, and that was
Did you
hard.
learn any film production in the
Oh
process?
yeah,
Any create, you're seeing a creator on
yeah,
YouTube and there's cameras everywhere. I think there's so much that goes behind the scenes and a lot of this content that we just don't see. There had to
yeah.
be some value that you got out of this opportunity. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. I found it 1,000,000% fascinating, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I can even talk about it.
Right. Well, you don't
Um,
have to, but
but I can say, like, it was kind of funny because you would see like these other contestants getting really excited to see people. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's Chris and Chandler
mm,
and Carl and everyone, which is like, yeah, that's really cool. But then I'm like, hey, there's Tariq, the camera guy, and
yeah.
Brady, the other camera guy. And like, what do you guys shooting on? What do you got over there? Like, oh,
Yeah.
how's all this set up? Like,
Well, that's a great
yeah,
segue into improving your equipment and using what do you use? I don't know if you can talk on what you're using, if you're okay with that, but I'd love to,
Yeah.
because I know last year we talked about your drone, but I know sometimes you lost. We talked about how you lost a drone and you got a new one, and
Yeah.
um, so what kind of stuff are you working with now? Not Don't go too deep
I won't, I
into it.
won't
We
go.
don't
I
want to
won't go
lose a bunch
too.
of people, but
I won't go too geek on you, but I
yeah,
have made some pretty massive changes. First off,
right.
drone is great. Drone is fine. It's been flying like a champ.
Mhm.
But some cool new features I've got that I'm super excited to start implementing. I've got a couple 360 cameras now that are
Okay.
action cameras. So, they've got the ability to get some unique shots that I haven't been able to acquire in certain things with the full cinema camera and gimbal setup. It's rather difficult. Like in this
Mhm.
last sled dog video, I'm snowmobiling 17 miles and breaking
Wow.
trail while towing all of my stuff behind me and trying to hold the camera. Like it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I've also made a big switch to Sony.
Okay. Whoa, big
And
switch because
yeah,
you're
I've been
your
a Canon
Kodak.
guy
Oh,
and
Canon. I
I've
mean,
had the same camera from day one. And I
yeah.
absolutely love it. It's been a workhorse, it's been a beast, but it was time for an upgrade. And what Sony is doing in their cameras just it got me. So I just made a big jump and invested in a full new
Yeah.
system and a full series of L lenses that I'm ready. It's going to step up the production
So
game quite a
let's
bit.
let's talk about that as far as making those jumps into what you feel is going to be a better move for the brand, for the company, the
Yeah.
Timber Cross, because I think a lot of small businesses can relate in different ways when you have to say, okay, this tool or this machine or this, fill in the blank has worked good for us, and it puts out good work, but there's
Yeah.
more opportunity if we invest, keyword invest, into this tool, and maybe we can do more new features, or maybe it increases production and efficiency, but it comes with a price tag. How do you do research, you ask people, what's the thought process behind improving your company and your
Well,
tools?
it's got to be smart. You know what I mean? Especially in this line of work because there's something new coming out every week.
Oh man.
Literally, there's a new drone, there's a new 360, there's a new action camera, the lens, like everything is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me is to never let the gear get in the way. But one of the big decisions I had to make on making this upgrade was the gear was actually getting in my way from creating what I needed and what I wanted. So this upgrade, it's going to allow more creative freedom and to be able to get an increased range of cinematic shots, like the dynamic range alone. Like when I'm outside experiencing these adventures, especially in Maine, like the weather changes quick.
Right.
And capturing that to be able to look up at the sky and to be able to have the sky be exposed perfectly to see those storm clouds coming in as this dog sledder is trudging across the lake and the wind is blowing, you need to be able to feel that. So to have that dynamic range was huge. So I'm hoping that it pays off and I can just continue to share a better story and just create something fun, man.
So definitely, and it sounds like an improvement on the visuals. Now you have to learn
Yeah.
a whole new camera, right?
Oh, the whole yeah, and that's
How
kind of
does
the funny
that?
thing is
You just self-taught?
yeah, and it was trial by fire in this situation. So I just made this big investment and I've been researching it for at least 6 months at this stage.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make the jump. I'm gonna do it. And then the camera and the whole new lenses showed up 2 days before I had to tackle this sled dog adventure.
Whoa.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't have the chance to go in and do some side projects and I didn't have time to troubleshoot anything. And again, I just got back from being gone for a month. So that free time that I had, I was trying to pour it into my wife and kids because
Yeah.
I just got back and now I'm like,
Mhm.
I've got to go away for another 10 days. So that was hard. And my wife is a
Mhm.
superhero. And like a lot of people, I'm not posting a lot, but it's to be able to bring what we've been trying to bring. It takes a ton of time and it takes
Mhm.
a ton of effort from everybody. I couldn't do this without my wife.
Shout out to the wives.
And like
Sure.
the whole reason that we want to do this kind of thing is for the kids. You know, we want them
Right.
to see these adventures and this lifestyle. So I don't know. It's been wild. So I got that and then jumped in. So I learned the menu system. I watched a bunch of tutorials and I had like a day of hands-on in the office with that camera. And then I made some pretty bold choices out in the field, and like the logistics of just filming that. You know,
It's like
this is
you
a
don't always get multiple opportunities to film a certain
yeah,
scene, or if the sun's setting just right, or if a wildlife comes out while you're out in the woods, or the dog's behavior, or the connection between the dog and the man. Like I want to dive
exactly.
into that whole
Oh yeah.
experience there.
So that's the incredible part. So when I first got this email, I was hesitant just because I just got back. But there's so many layers to this story and this adventure that I literally couldn't pass it up. I mean, first off, it's a 200 and well, it turned into a 285-mile sled dog journey through the remote Maine woods, starting in Fort Kent, Maine,
What can't?
going all the way
Wow.
to Moosehead Lake.
Whoa.
So,
A
I
lot of
mean,
woods,
Greenville
deep
Junction.
woods.
So tons of deep woods. And the whole aspect is some of these spots you can't drive to. You have to snowmobile, snowshoe. You got to find a way into some of these spots. So my journey and my goal was to document as much of it as physically possible on little to no prep, unfortunately. But I was like, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to get to as many spots as physically possible to see him on this journey. And that's going to involve camping out with him and his team as well.
Wow. How do
So
you prepare for that, like, mentally? And I feel like you still have to have an outdoorsman in you too. Like, you gotta be
oh
able
man,
to
but
embrace the harsh weathers.
that's my happy place, man. Like when I'm
Right.
outside in the middle of these adventures, that's my happy place. So
Mhm.
that side of me is good to go. Like in my truck. And that's the thing, like half the time I can pull up to a situation and I could live out of my truck in the woods for a week if I had
Wow.
to. So, you know, I'm pretty good with that. Like the logistics were, first off, it's gonna be 6 nights, 7 days, but it was 10 days for me because I had to go up, meet him, film him in the kennel, and then get a feel for who he is and more about what this adventure and the journey is gonna be. And the other cool aspects are like this guy is a breeder of an incredibly rare dog. Have you ever heard of Togo?
Yeah, I have. I actually
Yeah.
I watched that movie last year with my kids. They loved it.
So Togo's epic. It's this
Because
epic dog
Balto,
from
though, is the one that I
yeah,
remember, because there's a movie on Balto as well. I think I remember watching a children's movie of the dog that pulled, they were looking for the medicine to save
yeah.
the sick kids, or the sick people.
So the whole story has obsessed. I've been obsessed with it over these last, I don't know, this last month. Um, and it all started with an outbreak of diphtheria in Nome, Alaska, almost 100 years ago. And so I've been digging in and learning all the history of Nome. And it started as this gold mining town where bunches of people flocked there. And it's just one of the most inhospitable places literally in the world.
Harsher than Maine, right?
Oh,
Imagine.
yeah. It's in the middle of nowhere, nothing. And
Mm.
even back in, say, like the diphtheria run that happened in 1925. So they were just completely isolated. They had like a little local newspaper and this tiny town in the middle of nowhere. So an outbreak or a pandemic was, as we all know, can be terrible. And what diphtheria did is not to go into too much detail, but it would affect children, and it essentially would create the ability to no longer breathe. You know, it's another,
Mhm.
well, kind of like, COVID.
Wow.
So again, like why all of this is so powerful at this time. And there was this outbreak that was going to wipe out the entire city. And it was 40 to 50 below zero, crazy winds in the wintertime. You can't take a boat in because everything is frozen in. You
Mhm.
couldn't fly in at the time. They had just started doing some of these test mail flights, but they didn't have the cockpits enclosed. So, and then some of the temperatures dropped to negative 60 to below zero. And the only way to save these children was to get this serum, this vaccine,
Mhm.
some 600 odd miles. It
Right.
was even more than that. So the big thing was it became a relay race by Sled Dog because that was literally the only way to get the serum there. And these are rugged, tough conditions. Like some of these guys literally got frozen to their sleds, permanent
Wow.
frostbite. And these guys were running like 30 miles. And Togo and his musher, um, they did 261 miles
Right.
through the most dangerous conditions. Balto ran it across the finish line, but Balto was also his dog.
Oh,
So like,
wow.
there's all these different things. So incredible story. But what most people don't know is that dog ended up being bred and continued to become this breed because it was so phenomenal. And some of that rich history is right here in Maine.
Cool.
In Poland Springs Resort is where Togo actually retired.
What?
So he's got the history. So this
Yeah.
200, and it was supposed to be 261-mile run to the Togo 261.
Got it.
It was supposed to be that, and we're gonna try to raise funds to build a statue down in Poland Springs.
I think that's amazing.
So there's all of these different aspects. So my main mission and goal was how do I get to as many places as physically possible. Up in northern Maine, like the temperatures do get crazy cold. Like one of the days I'm up there, it's like -20. And then
Wow.
when he took off, it was like -17. So, we had to prepare for that. And it's just me, and I've got to be as light as physically possible because I'm looking at my main gazetteer. That's literally the only way I could get to these spots. Like you
Oh my
can't pull out Google out that way, and I
Yeah,
don't
no.
have
The
a
old
Garmin InReach.
gazetteer.
So I've got the gazetteer, it's all ripped up, and I'm at
Yeah.
page 55 to 56. And then, okay, there's this old road, and there were just all these old logging roads. So hours and hours and hours, like hundreds of miles on logging
Do you
roads.
think it's easy to get lost?
I mean, you
Take a
take the
wrong
wrong road and
turn?
you're driving for hours, then all of a sudden you get to a section where it's like, oh, hey, it's not plowed.
Right.
And you're 90 miles deep in the woods. And you're like, oh, I guess I missed a turn somewhere.
Ooh.
So, I mean, I lucked out. And the whole journey and the story behind this whole thing that I think is just so fascinating and
Mm.
exciting is as I'm getting into these places, I'm meeting all the locals. So it's like in each stage, like each 50 to 45 miles, there was a new place to spend the night.
Okay.
And 5 out of the 6 nights, random remote cabins along, not random, but
Mhm.
places along the way that were in support of this and wanted to help opened up. And I mean, these are places that, like I said, you can't just show up. And these folks went in, got a camp ready for us, started to fire. Some of them cooked food.
Mm.
Some of these guys even broke trail for them, like helped route out that 45-mile
That's
section.
cool.
And they were the ones who were like, all right, so here's where you're going to need to get to on the gazetteer. And then someone's going to meet you between 3 and 5 because it's backwoods. You never know how long it's going to take with a snowmobile. And then it was like anywhere from a 7 to a 30-mile ride in on a snowmobile into this remote cabin just to get there to film him. So then I'm filming as many different intersections because he has to cross some of these logging roads.
Well,
And
that's what I
with
was
the
going to
drone,
ask you. Is there any like
a few,
challenging
oh man.
crossings, whether like trees down or rivers or
Well,
lake?
I mean, just the whole thing was just so much back and forth. And like I said, you go into one of these logging roads and I'm like, all right, so when he's leaving in the morning, like Fort Kent was easy. Fort Kent to Allagash was all paved, and I know that area. But then we had some difficulties where I have him set up with gear because I know there's spots where I'm not going to be able to get to. And I'd gotten to one location and I waited for 4 hours waiting for him to cross. And I'm out there and it took me a while to get there and I'm waiting for 4 hours and now it's dark. And I'm like, I don't see him. And this is day 1.
You were ahead of him.
I went ahead of him, yeah. And then I never saw him. And then I ran ahead to the Allagash being like, I must have missed him. He must already be there somehow. I don't know how, but and then I get there and no one's heard from him. And no one can get a hold of him on his satellite phone.
And it's getting
then
dark.
I can't get a hold of him on the radio. And it is super dark. And it's like I said, it's day 1. So there was all that drama. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to unpack and unfold there. And, seeing that was the last stop his wife was going to see him at. So this is like a big day. This is a big event. This is a lifelong dream and goal of his. This is a quest, man. This is 285 miles hanging on to some dogs. Like it is epic. So his wife is panicking and it all works out, but there's all of that. So the two cameras that he has, one of the batteries jiggled out, and then one of the other things, memory cards failed. So I don't have footage
Oh,
from that day. So that's a struggle. So missing these shots, then weaving in that story. And then some of the crossings, like I got when you're on those logging roads, like all the Mainers know, like you do not own that road. You are just a guest. You are just a guest among giants, because
yeah.
when one of those logging trucks come flying down the road, you have to get out of the way. Like you're done. Like you just
On
get out of the
whether you
way.
got dogs in front of you or not, right?
Whether you have room or not, like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You get out of the way. And I got buried pretty deep into a snowbank. So that was fun. And on that day, this is like on day 3 at this point, and the logistics, the hard part is I'm meeting him in so many spots. He put on 285 miles. I put on 1,310 miles.
Wow. Is that on in a vehicle or on snowmobiles?
That's in a vehicle. That's on a
Yeah.
snowmobile. That's on a side by side. That's on an Argo. That's snowshoeing. That's everything.
Man, you put a lot into
And
this.
then I still have another day of filming, so I need to go down to Poland Springs Resort, um, where one of the dogs from this expedition is retiring, and that's where Togo retired. And this dog also happens to be blind and just loved to run and is just ready to hang out by the fireplace where Togo
What's
did
the
now.
oh,
It's so
we
cool.
don't we have a little bit of time left, but I want to know the chemistry. Like I love my dog, right? But she's just a house dog. I could train her to do some tricks and she can
Yeah.
run and fetch a stick and whatnot. But like, what's the connection, the bond between this guy and these dogs as they embrace these harsh environments? I mean,
Well,
what's that like?
that's the incredible thing. Like that's to be unpacked as I create this video, man.
Sure, sure.
Because like he loves these dogs, and they're not just dogs. Like a well-oiled sled dog team, their gaits all have to be the same. You have to understand each personality to get them in certain positions where at some point in the trail, this attribute is going to be really good to have in front, but at other parts of the trail, it could literally kill you.
Yeah,
So staging all of that, and then their well-being, how much are they eating, how much are
right.
they resting, like the
I
weather
remember that in the
conditions.
movie. I remember a lot. They
Yeah.
were really concerned about the health of the dogs as well.
Well,
What they're
because
eating.
it's a team.
Yeah.
Like this was a solo sled dog adventure. So it's not like a lot of people in Maine know
Okay. No.
about the Can-Am 250. The Can-Am 250, like there's mandatory checkpoints. It is a completely laid out path. There are people all over. There are vets at every single stop,
Yeah.
which it's epic and it is awesome. And I love that race and I want to film that again. But with this situation, essentially it's just John and his dogs. So they're a team in unison, just going back and forth. He's like,
Mm.
and he only had 8 dogs because they're so,
How many do they
again,
normally have?
well, you can have 12. I
Okay.
mean, when, like, to be
And
real
do
with
they
you, like,
rotate at all?
yeah, they
The
rotate out. And like, again, like, to geek out on you on gnome culture of like this dog sled serum run, like when Togo and his team went out, when Leonard Seppala and Togo went out, they had 20 dogs. Like that's what
wow.
that run went out to.
Yeah.
And what would happen. And the cool thing about this journey and that journey. So when Leonard Seppala goes out, you'd run these lengths like 50, 30 mile, whatever it might be. And there were roadhouses. So there was this little random remote cabin in the woods where there was someone really nice to show them hospitality
Yeah.
and help. And that's how they made a living.
Awesome.
So it was interesting that as John's going down through this journey, there's all of these random camps that are opening up.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know.
that you've done a great job at explaining
Fun.
it. I'm excited. I want to see this video. I know we still got a little ways to go, but guys, make sure. Well, Jeremy, as we wrap this up, why don't you let
Yeah.
people know what else you got planned for this year and this video specifically with the dog and his owner, his musher, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Where can people find this? And let's get a bunch of hype behind this one.
Yeah. So the big thing I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to make this my first full documentary. And then on top of that, I'm also going to do like a behind the scenes video of the filming and my adventure. I'm going to do the vlog of it. And I'm probably going to release that first, and then I'm going to do the full doc, and it's going to be on my Facebook page. It's going to be on YouTube, and literally I'm going to be trying to get it out in front of as many people as we can. And again, the hope of this is to help raise some awareness of the history of Togo, and to try to raise some money to build this statue. So I think it's a really cool thing. And then, there's a ton of stuff coming up that is just going to be exciting, but we're going to stick with that for now. I don't want to give too much away.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find, so they can find you on those? Is it at the Timber Cross?
Yep. You can find me under Jeremy T. Grant or the Timber Cross. And then make sure to follow me on Instagram. That's where a lot of some of the behind the scenes of this stuff is being posted up on the stories and the photos. So Jeremy T. Grant on Instagram.com.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming back on the Made in Maine podcast for season 2. It sounds like we're just going to have to keep having you back on. You're great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making these trips out into the Maine woods, sacrificing, time with your family to create these great videos, working together with these companies, and just really putting Maine on the map, highlighting these really cool things and the rich history of our state. I'm very excited. I kind of want to go watch the Togo movie right now. So great.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much. I'll catch you later. God bless, brother.
Sounds good.
Bye. Thanks for listening to season 2 of the Made in Maine podcast. We hope that you thoroughly enjoyed this episode and would like to ask you to consider sharing it with friends, family, and your business peers. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, you can find the Made in Maine podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and all other digital streaming services. If you would like to financially support the show and be a part of putting Maine on the map, you can subscribe to us on Patreon or email madeinmainepodcast@gmail.com. So shop local, shop small, and save Maine businesses once and for all.